Welcome to the Torvus podcast. My name is Ari, and I'm going to be joined by Jason once again. This is episode 6, and we are covering one of the most iconic 80s action films of all times, Bloodsport. So stay tuned, and let's get into it. So we're going to be tackling Bloodsport, one of the most iconic movies of the 1980s. You and I just finished watching it.
Great cheesy martial arts action.
Yeah, it was awesome. So Jason and I ordered some Chinese food. We watched the film. We laughed our asses off. And it is full of one-liners, stereotypical 80s stuff.
So 80s. So 80s, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, God, where do we start on this thing? Let's talk about kind of the history of it. So if you're unaware of... if you are, of Bloodsport. Came out in 1988.
87, 88, yeah, I think. It was released in 88, yeah.
Good year, because also Above the Law came out that year.
Yeah, it was a good turning point in martial arts movies.
Yeah, we're going to have a future episode on Above the Law and Steven Seagal, but we're going to talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is the star of this, and it's based on the quote-unquote real-life...
real life.
Yes, real-life events of Frank Dux. So, Jason, what do you know about Frank Dux?
Well, Frank Dux, they watched a documentary a few years back about how much bullshit Frank Dux was, but maybe a kinder way would say legendary, mythological being. He's not a real person. So if you're trying to enjoy things, sometimes the reality based on a true story even stretches it too far, I think, with Frank Dux. I'm no expert on it, but you can still enjoy the movie even though Frank Dux is complete bullshit.
But Frank, he is a real person, though.
He's a real person, but
yeah,
a real person or a real persona.
Got it. So apparently, Bloodsport is based on his fighting in the 1975 World Kumite Challenge, which was a real thing. So some of the background for this, apparently it really happened. It did not happen in Hong Kong as it's based in the movie. It did happen in the Bahamas. However, if you look up Frank Dux and the mythos around the guy, it's crazy.
Yeah, mythos.
Yeah, because he does. It is a mythos, right? So he had said that he fought in this tournament. There's a great quote. Jason and I were trying to do the numbers on this. So at the very end of the film, I'm just going to fast forward right to the end. Yeah. There's it's like his fastest knockout.
A bunch of stats
correct.
One of the last frames.
Yeah. So one of the stats was most consecutive knockouts in a tournament, and the number was 56. 56.
It's either one long-ass tournament or a big steaming pile of bullshit.
Yeah. So we did the math, and it's like, okay, let's say that this fighting tournament
Let's say a week.
A week.
Right.
So that's 7 days. How many times is he fighting it? He's fighting 8 times... No, 7. 8 times a day,
and knocking every single person out with 100% knockout.
Wow, that's crazy.
Or 10 times a day if he knocks people out 80% of the time.
Yeah. So I mean,
and still keeps going. That's pretty intense.
So let's put this into context of the modern UFC, which came in '93, where those guys were fighting 3 or 4 times a night, and that was like the max
for one night.
They
didn't do 7 UFCs back to back.
Correct. Yeah, so that was one of the stats. So obviously that is a lot of fighting in a week, and so you and I are both calling bullshit on that one. However, it doesn't take away from the magic of the film.
Yeah, the mythos. So you can have something in reality is complete bullshit, but still makes for it's fiction, right?
Right.
So you can still enjoy fiction even if the reality isn't really based on reality.
And that's why the filmmakers wanted to do it. They knew that the history of Frank Dux was BS, but they still wanted to do it.
A good story is a good story, right? And tall tales, sometimes better. Sometimes fact is stranger than fiction, but sometimes bullshit's more entertaining than truth.
Right. So I remember when this came out and I watched it, and it blew me away because...
Oh, yeah.
It was everything that we loved about martial arts. It was like, wow, style versus style.
Yeah, and this is before UFC, so it was style versus style, and it gave a good smorgasbord of different styles against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real eye-opener. I think it set a lot of precedents.
However, we should point out that when you're watching Bloodsport, there are only a few martial arts that they end up touching upon, right? It's not it's not running the gambit here.
No, it's not running the gambit.
Yeah.
But at the time, you got to remember the knowledge of what martial arts were back in the 80s isn't like the knowledge of martial arts now.
Correct.
What people know.
So this is pre jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or
Yeah.
any jiu-jitsu in there. They didn't talk. I mean, there's a ton of martial arts they didn't do.
But they did make an effort to show that the people were different. It wasn't like one style having its own tournament. There were differences between the characters to show that there were a lot of them that were the same, true, but they did have effort to make difference. It's not like going to a particular style of competition and everybody's the same. Just there was difference to get different characters. Kind of like it's a little pro wrestling too, where it's not just the styles of the people, but the personalities of the people facing off against each other.
So one of the things about Bloodsport, when I'm watching the film with you, an opening scene with that montage of when he's a kid, and he's visiting his shidoshi, Senzo Tanaka, and he's ill. It's all this cliche stuff, and then he pauses in the living room and he looks at the katana, and then he has this flashback.
With the little fuzzy edges of the video. I don't know what the technical term for it is. But when you do a flashback, you have to have the little kind of cloudy, hazy.
Yeah, and so what they did, I told Jason this. So what they used to do in film is to make that flashback or the dream sequences. They used to take a nylon and put it over the camera lens, and that's what would make it
like a bank robber.
And so it would give that kind of look. So you're watching Jean-Claude Van Damme. We'll watch, look at that, and he's had his flashback, and they jump through the window, and there's 3 kids, and 2 of them jump out the window because they get interrupted in the robbery or burglary, and it's hilarious. So
of course, he's the one that gets caught, the one that wasn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah, and of course he gets trained by Senzo Tanaka.
Yeah. But it was really cool when he cut his hat.
He
was sitting there with the sword. They were trying to steal the sword off the fireplace mantle there, and the Japanese guy cuts off the beak or whatever the front of the ball cap was. That was pretty cool.
So the martial art that Frank Dux learned, they don't really talk about it in the movie, but it's ninjutsu. So that's what it is. And when Frank Dux, the real person, was asked about his history, it's very shady. So he started his own martial arts, Duke Ryu. After he did that. So it's pretty crazy stuff.
There was a whole documentary. You'll remember it better than me. I only watched it the one time there, but there was a whole documentary about the life and whatever of Frank Dux.
Yeah. So the montage of Bloodsport is so good because it's quintessential 80s stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like doing the splits and catching the fish in the water and putting the blindfold on and like every martial art.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme, this is a good role for him. This is him. Like, I mean, being able to do those splits and stuff, like that's the kind of stuff he's good at.
And this was his breaking role.
Well, this was for maybe he did something before, I don't know, but this is the first time I ever remember seeing him.
Yeah, and then obviously it launched his career. So the whole training sequence and the music was so good. And Jean-Claude was actually said, so here's some trivia from the film. Jean-Claude Van Damme said that the music of the film was actually better than the film itself.
I wouldn't go that far, but
it's so good. So going to kind of where the movie was headed. So he ends up going over to Hong Kong for this thing called the Kumite. And the Kumite, as we all know, listening audience, was the great fighting sequence of all these fighters around the world. It's held every 5 years. And Jason and I were commenting how awesome it was as they're walking to the, I don't know, what would you call it? The arena, the room?
Yeah, he says you're crossing over from Hong Kong into mainland China.
Yeah.
And because before Hong Kong was part of British Empire, so
and so they ended up walking into the arena, but they walked down this corridor.
Yeah, like at alleys, but they're like closed in. It's they're alleyways, but it's almost like being in a cave or inside because they're so tight.
Because the buildings are so close together and they're so tall, and it almost had this kind of like cyberpunk feel.
And it was very labyrinthine. It was
And so they walked down, and we were mentioning as they walk into the arena for the first time, I said, "Hey Jay, look at the 2 bodyguards that are standing outside of the grand doors of the arena."
Yeah.
And it's these 2 Asian guys who are probably 5'3", and they have like these muscle shirts on, and they got their arms crossed.
Yeah.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme and Donald Gibb, who plays Jackson.
Oh, those guys. Okay.
They walk in with their handler named Vic, this Asian dude who's got this mullet. Amazing.
Hilarious. He's great.
And so they walk in and they pass these 2 dudes. And I'm like, Jason, look how small those guys are. Like, they're not keeping anyone
what
out.
What are they going to do? Like, I mean, nothing against small guys, but like, I mean, it's also, come on, like all these guys that are coming in here are the top martial artists in the world, right? And like, are you going to stop them? Like, no.
No, they're not stopping anybody.
But actually, well, sorry.
What?
I was going to say before that, one of my favorites, and I think maybe it's safe to say one of your favorites too, before they even make it all the way to the place where they're having the tournament earlier on in the alley, they run into a checkpoint of like the triad guys that are going to let them through, right?
So one of the best scenes and best lines, and Jason and I have been using this for years, is there's this guy that they talk to. It's like, take us to the arena, and he does the okay USA
with a thumb up.
Yeah,
and
the best thing about that line is it's actually used as a meme on the internet because it's so awesome.
Oh, it's not just our personal meme.
No,
other people use this.
Yeah, you can actually see him like the thumbs up and doing that, and it's a GIF image as well. So it's awesome. So they end up going to the arena, and he does his to prove. Again, one of the best scenes is it's like he doesn't look like a Tanaka, and then and so they challenge him. The
you got to do a demonstration of your skills,
right? And so what does he have to do?
He has to do the dim mac.
Yeah, the dim mac. So he ends up doing the, what is it?
Deft touch.
Yeah, deft touch. He must break the brick.
Yeah.
And then he's Vic, choose a brick. And he's like, okay, Frank, top one.
Yeah. And he says the top one. And then the guys that are the overseers of this tournament are standing behind them that can't possibly see through them, I don't think. Yeah. But then they're like, no, not that one. Bottom one.
Yeah. And then he does the deft touch, and he breaks the bottom one. And it's so classic. And the funny thing is that film spawned so many martial art films.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was a Canon film. It must have been a Canon film.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That also when they're doing this introduction where they come in. So Frank Dux, Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's like the main hero character in this, but he's got like his partner sidekick, the Jackson guy, big American, beard, biker kind of,
who doesn't have a martial art at all.
Has no martial arts at all. So I thought it was kind of, it's a great movie, but it's got some nice holes like that. So they go through all this trouble to make sure that Dukes is the right guy, and he's got his pedigree, and they don't believe him, and he's got to make this thing. And meanwhile, this guy that's got no martial arts thing, like how did he even get invited in the first place? He's got no pedigree to show. They don't ask him to show anything. He's just there. It's like all right, so there's your cool USA thing.
The only reason they allowed him in is because he was big. That was it. Like
but he's awesome.
The Harley Davidson headband is so good.
Yeah. Like even before they get to the tournament, right? They don't even know each other, and they're on the bus. They're headed to the hotel before they even meet.
Oh yeah.
and he comes on the bus with the beer. This Jackson guy, right?
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, honey." Talking to some woman on the bus, and he's totally sexist. Is like
Jean-Claude's like kind of rolling his eyes at him, sort of thing.
Yeah. So one of the awesome things is when just before I think they go to the tournament, they're when they actually meet.
They meet
in the lobby
first time, yeah. In the
hotel. Jackson is playing a game,
a great video game.
What game?
Karate Champ.
And I remember that one.
Karate Champ is such an awesome game. It's got like 2 joysticks. There's not many arcade games that have 2 joysticks where you get to do it. So it's a really hard game to emulate these days if you're into retro gaming and stuff. Great game, but hard to emulate. And yeah, they get to fight each other in this head-to-head game. The red karate guy against the white karate guy.
Which is awesome. And the funny thing, talking about video games, and so this is some trivia. If you didn't know, the whole concept of Mortal Kombat is almost exclusively based off Bloodsport.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Bloodsport is super influential.
That's where it came up. And the character of Johnny Cage is Jean-Claude Van Damme. So that's where the creators of the game, they said Johnny Cage is, so that's what it was.
I mean, it's a great setup for a video game, right? Like you've got a bunch of guys with different things fighting each other. Perfect for games.
Yeah. And so when they talk about, well, how do you know Johnny Cage is like, so I've done a ton of research into this, but Jean-Claude, JC, Johnny Cage.
Oh.
See, so there's these little subtleties in Mortal Kombat, which is awesome. So here's some trivia, actually. So the costumes apparently were all wrong for Bloodsport. And Van Damme's character was originally outfitted in his fight scenes to wear silk pajamas.
Yeah, because what's more Japanese martial arts than silk pajamas?
I know. So the filmmakers apparently bought these locally in Hong Kong, and where the movie was shot, obviously. But the real life Frank Dux found them to be unrealistic. And so based on his alleged experience in the Kumite, he decided to change it up. So there was no extra money in the budget. So they had bought the stuff already, and so they couldn't revamp the uniforms. So what Dux did was he made himself the de facto costume designer and paid out of his pocket to have his wife buy the uniforms in the United States and send them to China for the fighters. Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's pretty awesome. So pretty cool that that Frank Dux actually didn't like the uniforms and he sent his wife to go get the
That's great. I never knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, the uniforms are kind of ridiculous, and there's always that quintessential moment in the '80s where the hero has to take off his jacket and be like shirtless.
Yeah, and there was a lot of pec flexing.
Yeah, there was. So the main enemy or bad guy in the film, Chong Li, who's played by Asian icon Bolo Young, who had been in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, been around for a while. There's also a documentary coming out called The Chinese Hercules, which is based on his life, which is coming out this year.
I'll have to see that.
Yeah, I saw that on the internet, so that would be a really good watch.
Because like even at the beginning of the movie, like they had we talked about the flashback with Frank Dux and his Japanese sensei, but for the other characters, not all, but several of the other characters had their own little training montages as before they even got there, right? And so you had Chong Li there in Korea breaking ice blocks hanging from ropes and the thing. You had some British guy there with his butler breaking boards, and you had this guy on a tree doing chops and cracking coconuts with his hands.
The monkey guy.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And the other guys in different fights and stuff.
And they had
it's good setup.
Malaysian sumo guy, and
the sumo guy with the big bag. Yeah.
So Bolo Young, who is the main bad guy in the film, also very short. So it's funny how they film it because he's a huge dude, right? He's like super. Yeah. He's a bodybuilder and everything like that. But you have to put into context and how they just angle it because you can't have the bad guy so small, right?
Yeah.
So they just, all the camera angles hilarious. And actually the funny thing is they wanted to get Michael Dudikoff, who was the actor who did American Ninja, to play Frank Dux in the film. However, they passed on him because he was too tall. He was 6'2".
Yeah.
So they couldn't have the hero too tall because it would just look like, he's just squashing everyone and he's just taller than everyone. So they got Jean-Claude Van Damme, who I think is probably about 5'8", 5'9" at the most. So
however it came, it worked out pretty damn well.
Yeah, and they the actors, quote unquote actors for it.
There's not a lot of great acting in this. Let's make no mistake.
No, they have Forrest Whitaker's in it. That's it.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's no great actor either, but this role, he does a great job with this character.
Yeah.
So,
but all the fighters in it were actually real life fighters that they got for the film.
Yeah.
So so when you watch them fighting each other, so they had. What was that? Do you remember the Muay Thai guy, Paco?
Yeah, Paco.
So
he's awesome.
Yeah, he was a real life
arrogant
Muay Thai
bastard.
Guy.
Yeah, just the way he struts around the ring there, and
yeah. So that was the real life Muay Thai champion. His name was Paulo Tasha, and he was Paco, bad guy in it. So pretty hilarious. And there's a great scene where Jean-Claude Van Damme is fighting Hussein.
Oh yeah.
So Hussein is we were trying to figure it out. So Hussein looks Asian. His accent in the film is Russian. However, he is wearing a turban. So I believe he's supposed to be from like a Middle Eastern country or like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they were trying to do something like that. Yeah.
And he's got this big gold.
Like I said, it's kind of WW. It's like kind of wrestling-y kind of thing, like Iron Sheik kind of like role of heel he's being put into.
Yeah, so the Hussein guy with the gold tooth, he ends up getting knocked out by Jean-Claude Van Damme in the film.
And you got the janitor guy, that was awesome.
But so the knockout, I told Jason about this because I'd read about it, and we're watching the film, and so Hussein gets knocked out initially, and we're like, oh, that doesn't look very real.
Yeah, he did the fake little flicky, not touchy, no touch. No, he knocked him down, and then he did a little flicky, no hand knockout thing. It was like, okay, that's kind of lame. How could that be the thing? But then,
yeah, and then so I guess he grabbed Jean-Claude Van Damme from behind, and Van Damme's supposed to turn around and elbow him. So he actually elbows him, and you see it. They left this in the film.
Yeah.
So I implore you to watch. And he connects with Hussein's jaw, hits him hard.
Like some of the other things, you can see that it's movie fighting where they don't connect, but this one connects.
Yeah. So he gets the elbow to the face, and he ends up falling down onto his face without.
On his face, not with the old hands first and then land on your face, but on your face.
Yeah, so he actually it was a legit knockout. So, and they kept that in the film. So
Which I didn't know that until you mentioned that it was real, but maybe that's just part of the thing. It makes it, so you got a movie about so-called based on real world thing that's fake, but then you end up getting like, movies are supposed to be fake, you end up getting a real knockout in it. So,
right.
Fact and fiction meet together, and that's what makes for greatness.
Yeah, and I wonder if there was any more injuries in that film.
Well, it's not quite Jackie Chan level stuff, but it'd be interesting to find out.
God,
we'll have to do something on him sometime.
Yeah, but there was
amazingly underrated guy.
Some of the fight scenes though in Bloodsport are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, some are ridiculous and some are good. But it's so cheesy too. It's like if you don't enjoy cheesy martial arts thing, then maybe it's not for you. But you gotta have some cool things you gotta enjoy the cheesiness too.
So for me, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, one of my pet peeves is no jiu-jitsu in it. Yeah. And there's do you know any joint locking and stuff?
There's a few little things, like they got a couple little elbow things and stuff that they do in there, but they don't go full on. But that said, I think that UFC wouldn't have taken off as it did without Bloodsport having come out first. Even though they're not doing jiu-jitsu in it, it set up that kind of format of the, no rules, different martial arts styles meet and let's see who wins kind of thing. I really think that was part of how they were able to get UFC. I mean, I don't have any information, I haven't done any research on it, but it just seems that way, like from living through those times that Bloodsport came first and then UFC. And
I wonder if the reason for that is because when you watch Bloodsport and the kicks and the punches, that's more dynamic to see.
Yeah.
It makes better cinema.
Yeah, totally.
So jiu-jitsu is very close, and it's like, what's going on there? I can't really.
First jiu-jitsu, I think, would have been one of the Lethal Weapon.
There was
ones that was one of the first ones I remember.
1987, and so when Mel Gibson put Gary Busey into a triangle choke, right? And people didn't know what it was.
Yeah, because that was one of those like, whoa, okay, cool. That was cool. They didn't know what it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, but I think that's why they have so many kicks and punches in Bloodsport, because it just looks visually good.
And Bloodsport is one of those movies that they really should remake it. You can still watch it now as a good old school cheesy martial arts thing, but they really should remake it. Like the idea of the different martial arts coming together. And honestly, UFC isn't that great anymore because there's too many rules now. It used to be like no rules. Now it's like rules. But our opinions differ. That's my opinion on it.
Right.
But if you were going to make a movie, you wouldn't have to be bound by as many rules, and you could have modern grappling jiu-jitsu in a more of a blood sport kind of thing and show the different stuff. I think it's how could you not remake this?
Yeah, and I think they probably had a sequel. I know they had a sequel. I never watched it, but it's probably like even worse.
Yeah, and it's like no weight divisions and stuff, right? Like you got that coconut cracking guy, which is how small is he against the sumo wrestler guy, right? Like, I mean, you don't see it now that's all weight divisions and stuff, but like the first couple UFCs, I don't remember exactly what number where they changed things over, but it was more Wild West like that. I enjoyed the first ones a lot more because it had that kind of total openness in them, and Bloodsport kind of has that. But like I'm saying, I think that UFC owes a debt of gratitude to Bloodsport, even though it's not the jiu-jitsu the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean the fight scenes they're good. I said a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of kung fu. There's a ton of kung fu in it, of course, and karate. But that kind of leads me into talking about the fighting and the fighting styles into Dane's Dungeon here. And for Dane's Dungeon, what we're going to be talking about is our favorite characters. We're going to be cool shit or bullshit on Dane's Dungeon here on the characters in Bloodsport.
All right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run down the characters in Bloodsport.
I don't know if I know the names of most of them, but
if I say the coconut,
we'll be like, oh, that guy, yeah.
You're going to say cool shit or bullshit. So if you're unaware of what Dane's Dungeon is dedicated to Jason and I, our good friend who passed away a few years ago. And he was the ultimate geek. And so this segment of the Torvus podcast is always going to be dedicated to him because he would be talking about things like this. And we go on in hours. Yeah. And he just had a way
He's here with us in spirit.
Yes, he is. So here we go. Dane's Dungeon, the characters of Bloodsport, bullshit or cool shit. Okay, Jason, so I'm going to start with the big names here.
All right.
So we're going to start with Frank Dux himself, Jean-Claude Van Damme's character. Cool shit or bullshit?
Cool shit. We wouldn't be talking about this if he didn't turn into cool shit. I remember the movie is just one of those great cheesy martial arts of the 80s that changed the way martial arts movies were.
Yep, I agree. So I would say that actually Bloodsport probably has to be listed in the top 10 greatest martial art cheesy films of all time. It has to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you can't, if it's not in your repertoire, you have no place in this genre.
I would be interested to hear from someone younger who has seen other things before they see Bloodsport to see, because it's one thing, like we saw these things in the order that they came out, right? So,
Right.
you saw the Bruce Lee things before and we saw this. There wasn't as many martial arts movies back then. Things have exploded. And even regular action movies now have so much martial arts in them. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think it'd be interesting to see how it would come across to a modern viewer.
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy. So now we have going on to Bolo Young, who is obviously Chung Lee in it. And he's in his mid-70s now, I guess.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I think cool shit. Like, it was like he was like a badass villain. You're like, whoa.
He really was. He was good. He had only a couple lines because he didn't speak English very well.
Yeah.
So again, quintessential bad guy. So good sounding board for Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
So cool shit. I agree.
A little too many chest flexes, but I always joke he should have done a Rub A535 commercial. And I don't know if they make those like that anymore, but if you're old enough to remember that, you get what I'm saying.
Okay, so moving on to how about Donald Gibb, who played Ray Jackson?
Ray Jackson, loved it. Sometimes you get the brash American stereotype, but he did it great in a way that he takes those stereotypes, but he does them in a way that you just love him. Like say he comes on that bus with that beer, hey baby kind of thing, but he's not he's doing kind of creepy things, but in a harmless, kind of good-natured, he's kind of good old boy thing that he's in there. He wanders into the stuff. He's got no style. He just, we talked before about Frank Dux has to do the brick thing. So later on, he walks into the tournament thing and he says, pick a brick, right? And then, bang, he breaks the top brick and he says, look at the bottom brick, not even harmed at all. And he takes and smashes it over his forehead and he gives it to the Grandmaster guys.
Yeah.
My gift to you or something like that.
It's so good.
It's just like, and he's got his like Harley Davidson stuff and his wallet with the chain and the plane of it. It's just, he's just a great character for a non-martial arts guy in a martial arts movie. I think he really added a lot to that movie.
And remember, 4 years before that, he was in a very, very classic nerd film, Revenge of the Nerds.
Really?
He was Ogre.
Oh, wow. See, you're way better with actors. Why?
Do you remember Revenge of the Nerds at all?
I remember watching Revenge of the Nerds, but wow, I would never make the connection.
Yeah, he was the jock guy, and he was like, nerds! That's him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, he looks the same.
Well, me with faces.
I guess so.
Change your hair, put the beard on, you're a different person.
Oh, my goodness.
Those glasses, beard disguises work on me.
How about Forrest Whitaker, who played Rollins, one of the special agent guys?
I think bullshit. The other agent was better, and I say they kind of tried to play them with each other and stuff. But I mean, he's done some good stuff since then. But I think that he took away more than he added from the thing.
So the funny thing of Forrest Whitaker, so it was Rollins and Helmer.
Was that the old guy?
Yeah, played by Norman Burton, and they end up in one of the scenes. They pull out tasers.
Oh yeah,
and
big clunky tasers.
These things are hilarious. So again, watch the film and watch them pull out these. They're like, do you remember the old cell phones? Obviously, right?
Yeah,
they're huge.
Or they're like a Dirt Devil little hand vac.
That's exactly what they look like.
Thing, yeah.
Dirt Devils. That's the bang on. So they have these tasers, and he uses it, and I'm like, oh my god! And it's like, don't screw around with us, Dukes, or you get 50,000 volts.
50,000 volts.
So bad. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they pulled them out twice.
Yeah, and then we had Paco.
Cool shit.
Paulo Toja, and he real life Muay Thai guy, man.
Yeah.
Again, cool. His attitude. He didn't say anything, but yeah.
But he just had that strutting kind of attitude in his little.
Yeah, he was kind of puckering his lips and
face and stuff like.
Yeah.
And he was there, and he had some good fights and stuff, and I mean, again, like right now, Muay Thai guys, it's all over the place and stuff. But back then, it was like, whoa, what is this stuff?
So here's my take. I'm going to kind of go off in a branch here, but I would say that if that was a real tournament, my money would be on Paco. The Muay Thai guy, since there was no Jiu-Jitsu guy in it, there's some kickboxing guys, but Muay Thai, like vicious martial art, not to take away from karate or anything else.
And to be fair, they let him get as far as they could for not being a main character.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, like knees and elbows and viciousness and like just real, because of just the actual combat training that you do in Muay Thai. Right, realistic sparring and stuff like that, and since you had the knees and the elbows and the fists and the feet and stuff, that just made it vicious. So I think if it was a real tournament, I would say Paco would win it. What do you think? Who do you think in that tournament would have won?
He's definitely a contender there.
Yeah.
Well, because they're not all real people. I don't know. I think the way it was there, then Chung Lee would have won it, like the whole blind thing and stuff like that. I think the main problem with the fights is the fact that the people, once they're winning, they just turn around. And again, it's very pro wrestling. It's like, okay, the guy's down and there's no rules. And then you just turn your back on him and let him stay there, or you just sit there and watch him be down. There's no rules that you're supposed to just let the guy back up. They could have just, because they had some times where they just finished the guy and other times where they let him get back up. Yeah. And all the times where people lose, they had a chance in those fights where they could have, the main characters, I mean, they had a chance where they could have taken the guy out.
But that's like every movie where the bad guy has to explain his stupid plan.
The stupid plan,
right?
and then it
gives it time to kill them.
And then it goes on. So that's my main complaint about the fights. Who would win? So I think that Chung Lee would have won, because I mean, there's a ref in these fights, but the ref really shouldn't be in there because it doesn't stop people from breaking any of the rules. It's like, okay, turn around and attack a guy after you're knocked out, no problem. Throw some chalk in a guy's face, no problem. Like, it's like, why is he even on the mat? So with the no rules there, I think that the way he was breaking the rules there, and the chalk in the eyes, not being able to see and then just finish them. Like, if he's the guy that's willing to kill people, he would have just finished him.
Yeah, I don't know. His fighting prowess was not strong enough. I still think Paco would have knocked him out easy. So,
but that's what's interesting too. If the matchings had gone anytime you have tournaments, right? It's like, rock paper scissors thing. Guy A beats guy B, but guy C would have beat guy A.
True.
It's like that kind of thing. If the matches had gone, that's why I like round robin kind of tournaments and stuff. That seems to me a better way to do things. But yeah, Paco definitely was one of the top guys, and I think for not being the hero or the villain, they let him go. They let him go pretty well in there.
Yeah, and then there was a non-fighter in there again. I'm going to say cool shit right off the bat, but Kenneth Sue played a guy by the name of Victor Lin, and he was the handler for Jean-Claude Van Damme and Donald Gibb. Amazing. Right?
Super cool. And he looked, just because it's a cheesy thing, right? The glasses, the hair, just the mannerism.
Yeah. Like, put up your dukes, eh?
Right. Dukes, I can.
It's so good. So he was great. Now, we were talking earlier about, so the character's name, actually, is his full name, I'm just looking up now, was Sadiq Hussein. And he was played by Bernard Morano. So that was the Sheik guy.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think of his character?
I think that's bullshit. That's just thrown in as a thing. Oh, this guy's it's just wrestling heel. Let's throw this guy in as a evil character that unredeemably, and have him there to be the butt of the joke kind of thing.
It was so.
Although I did like seeing his tooth knocked out and the janitor pick it up. And
but it was so stereotypical. Like he was sexist. It was like
that's what I mean. It's just too, like, even within a cheesy thing, it just goes too far on the painted, kind of evil.
So apparently he is, I'm just looking him up now. So Bernard Morano, he was born in Hong Kong, and he's of Filipino descent. And he was picked for the role of Hussein in Bloodsport in 1988 after being spotted working out in a gym because he was actually, if you look at his physique, he had a bodybuilding physique. And so at the time, he needed money to pay for his university fees, so he decided to take up the film.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting with that. So I love it when he loses the tooth, though. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh. So I'm also going to talk about there's a little magic trick that Frank Dux does on Hussein in the film with the coin.
Yeah.
He puts his hand out, puts a coin in it, and basically Jean-Claude Van Damme says, if I can take this coin from you, then I get to keep the girl, and if you can keep it, then you keep the girl, that type of thing. But here's a trivia for you. Ready, Jay?
Yeah.
And Jason doesn't know this. So apparently Bernard Morano, who played Hussein, has some serious sleight of hand skills.
Oh.
He is a very, very accomplished magician. And his sleight of hand skills, he actually performs magic shows for children.
Cool.
And so
another way to pay his way through university.
So that idea of the whole coin thing was
That was his idea. Cool.
Yeah. So there you go.
The actor seems cool. I'm just saying the character was bullshit.
The character. I wasn't a huge fan of that either. So when the tournament goes through, they get to the quarterfinal, and at the quarterfinal they have Chong Li ends up fighting a guy in the semis to go to the finals. And Jason and I are both watching that, and I'm like, who's this dude? He doesn't have any film time, any camera time, and it's just like no lead up to him. It's just some guy that Chong Li fights, ends up killing him in the semis.
Yeah, they're either we're both missing this, or they didn't lay in the things to show, because you want to show like he's the next best guy, like
He's beating people to get
like
there.
Jean-Claude Dux gets to fight Paco, and that's like, okay, yeah, there's a next best guy, and you needed something on the other side that was kind of set up that way.
Yeah,
I didn't remember that. There was a little bit too many kung fu guys in silk suits.
There was a ton.
I mean, they did have different martial arts, but they could have had like a drunken kung fu guy. Like, I'm not a kung fu expert, but some styles that were a little bit more distinct to make it cooler.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. And one of the guys we're actually missing talking about was the actor's name is Michael Quizzy. And Michael Quizzy and Jean-Claude Van Damme were childhood friends, and that's the guy.
Which character is that?
He's the guy who ends up he's a kickboxer as well. He played Tong Po as well in Kickboxer the movie. And he's the guy who gets his leg broken in Bloodsport. Okay. So they were childhood friends, and so that's how he ended up getting onto the film. And and so when Jason, we were watching, and the guy's leg gets broken, and Jason's like, "Oh, I can't even watch that." Oh,
because there's a compound fracture, and I've got a really vivid imagination. The special effects weren't that good, but in my mind, they're a lot better. It's like,
so it's funny. So they said that apparently the guy who does play Michael Quizzy, he ended up signing a 3-film picture deal after he got on Bloodsport, which is pretty cool. So he ended up doing Kickboxer, which he played Tong Po, the film's main villain. And then also in 1990, Jean-Claude Van Damme and him did Lionheart, where Quizzy, which he ended up being in that as well. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, probably a lot of people got a good start in there.
Yeah, and for some reason, I got to look it up now. Yes. So in 1987, 88, when Bloodsport came out, his character's name was Juan Paredes. That's what it was. Yeah, interesting. So was he closer to bullshit? I'm sorry on that guy.
It was kind of in between. They didn't, I mean, because the broken leg was cringeworthy, that was kind of cool. Okay. To get a nice graphic injury in there. I think other cool. I thought that the sumo guy was really cool.
Yeah, I call him the Malaysian sumo guy. Yes. Yeah. Who gets nut punched?
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme does the splits and then just
after he does the stomach palm thing that he's like sure he's got him, and then he's like, oh my god, that didn't work. What am I gonna do?
See, this is the thing I understand. This is the bullshit moment in Bloodsport. He ends up doing, I'm assuming, a dim mock.
Yeah, because it was like the strike he did to the brick, and it's like,
right.
It's like, okay,
should kill him, right?
Should kill him. I was like, whoa, and he just like sort of shrugs it off, kind of Odd Job style,
Yeah, it's a nice James Bond reference there. So I don't understand that. So he does a dim mock on the sumo dude, but it doesn't put him down.
Yeah.
So then he's
like I said, that's a good thing with martial arts. You get the rock paper scissors thing, right?
I know, but then he's got to punch him in the nuts, and then
punch him in the nuts,
worked.
right?
I don't know.
It's a low blow.
It was a low blow, but there are no rules in that.
There's no rules, so there you go.
Boy. So this is that was Dane's Dungeon, our cool shit bullshit on the characters of Bloodsport. And comment below and let us know who your favorite character was, what you thought was bullshit, and what was cool shit in the fight sequences during that film. And Jason, one of the fight scenes, there's a guy in a gray karate gi that Jean-Claude Van Damme fights. And he's got long hair, got a red sash on. And apparently this guy is a fighting veteran of Hong Kong. He's a stunt performer and apparently a top-notch martial artist in his own right. His name is Yushu Wu.
Okay.
And what the director and producers told him is he actually had to tone down his kicking skills.
Because he's too good of a martial artist.
Yeah, to make Van Damme look better on screen.
Yeah.
Because he was going too fast, which is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's one of those things that movie actors aren't the best martial artists, but the job of the movie is to make it look like they're the best.
yeah.
So again, that's that whole thing about reality, fantasy, yeah.
Okay, so
But there's just amazing how many really talented people there are in these movies. Like some people you'll see in that are extras in movies. People don't realize how much martial arts experience some of these people have.
Well, apparently Jean-Claude Van Damme had martial arts. He had some, karate tournaments and stuff that he won, and he'd done stuff. Obviously,
I'm not saying he hasn't done anything, but I mean, it's just
There's
just
levels.
because he's a hero in the movie doesn't mean he's the best martial artist in the thing. Because he gets to play the best martial artist doesn't mean he is the best martial artist. Doesn't mean he's the worst, but
yeah. So here's something I'm going to put you on the spot. Because there was beef in the 1980s with different action stars. Talking about their martial arts skills when they came out.
because martial artists are so humble.
So there was do you remember the beef between Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Oh, two giant egos. I don't remember. I don't really follow celebrity. I'm sure I heard about it at the time.
Yeah,
I usually just roll my eyes about this celebrity stuff because honestly, I don't really care about the people in their real lives and stuff. I'm more interested in the characters doing their things and just enjoying what it is on the screen. I'm sure I heard about it and rolled my eyes and went, okay, here you go.
So there was a clash between the two. They ask each other who would win in a real fight. So here we go. This is you putting on the spot. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
So I'm going to.
And what year was this that this happened? Is this in the 80s that this happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or early 90s.
Yeah.
But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention two martial arts. So I'm going to say A versus B.
Okay.
And then you're going to tell me who the winner is in a real fight.
A real fight. Okay.
In a real fight. Even though we have no idea what the real fighting prowess is like, based on what we know of the characters that they've played.
Character on character action.
Yeah, but they've done lots of different characters, different films.
Okay.
So here we go.
So amalgamation of the characters they've played.
Yeah, or what you know of the actual martial art background of the person.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. And the listening audience, you can play along as well. So what I want you to do, also make comments when you're listening to this on which you would think would win in a real fight between these people. So here we go. First one, Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal would slaughter him.
Steven Seagal would slaughter Jean-Claude Van Damme. Copy.
Look at the brutality of the deaths of the people that he fights in those early movies.
But this is also
later stuff. Might be a totally different story.
Yeah.
Later he's become anyway.
But that's a story. In his prime,
and those early characters. Yeah, like if you take Steven Seagal from Above the Law versus Frank Dux in Bloodsport. Yeah.
Okay, got it. How about Jean-Claude Van Damme versus in his prime Chuck Norris?
I still think Chuck Norris. It's Chuck Norris.
It's Chuck Norris, of course.
It's Chuck Norris. I mean, enough said.
So good. Okay, how about Jackie Chan versus Chuck Norris?
Ooh. Jeez, that's a tough one.
That is tough.
I would say Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan, I don't think gets enough credit. Chuck Norris is Chuck Norris, and he's completely awesome. Mm-hmm. But I think Jackie Chan is
pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
So Jackie Chan
might be controversial, but that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Okay, so how about we got two? Well, we have an icon. We have Bruce Lee versus Jet Li.
Jet Li.
Whoa.
Controversial, yes.
Wow. Okay, you got to explain this one.
But there's a Jet Li movie that's a remake of a Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the name of it? Fist of Legend,
Okay.
and it's a remake of the Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah.
And I remember going, okay, once I found out it was a remake of a Bruce Lee movie, you know how I am. I like to do the first thing, then second thing.
Uh-huh.
And so then I rewatched the Bruce Lee movie, which I watched obviously before, and I was like, oh, that was like super cool. And then I watched the Jet Li movie, way better. I know it might be controversial, not taking anything away from Bruce, but but Jet Li, Fist of Legend, that's one of the top martial arts movies, and he's remaking Bruce Lee, and he's outdoing Bruce Lee.
Nice.
In it. And I'm not sure that they're fighting each other in the real world and stuff like that, and standing on the shoulders of giants and all that stuff. But I dare anyone to watch those two movies and tell me that the Bruce Lee one is better.
Okay, so this is based on characters, of course, right? So
Well, that's what I've seen characters in movies. I haven't seen the real people in the real world.
So if you were, I mean, neither have I. So you're only basing on what you see.
Well,
in the
you've
films.
seen some of them in the real world, but
Yes, but not. We don't know what their actual
still doesn't
style
let
is
you
like, right?
tell what they are. Yeah,
They're film actors.
yeah.
Some of them are martial arts that become film actors, but you still don't know what their legitimacy is like.
Yeah, and again, like we were saying, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme versus the other guy who's better than him. If you judge it by the film, well, Frank Dux is better than that guy.
Yeah.
But in the real world, that guy is better than Jean-Claude Van Damme is. So by saying someone's better in a movie doesn't mean it's necessarily so in the real world. And that's what I've got to go with. So
Yeah.
otherwise, you're just speculating, which is fine. Speculating is cool.
But a lot of, if you look at a lot of actors out there, a lot of them do have martial art backgrounds.
Yeah.
Legit, they're black belts and stuff like that. Like Blade, Wesley Snipes, he's a black belt.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what he's a black belt in. I think I want to say Hapkido, Shotokan Karate. That's what it is. So he is a 5th degree black belt actually in Shotokan Karate. He's also trained in Capoeira, and he also has done Kung Fu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing. So he's got quite a few things. He was supposed to fight Joe Rogan many years ago.
Really?
Yes, never came through because he went to jail for tax evasion.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. That would have been a thing. Well,
Yeah.
you know, there's other people. Elvis, right?
Okay. So
Seen Bubba Hotep?
yeah, Elvis. If I'm going to actually put in when I'm doing the clip, you'll be seeing right now Elvis doing some his Kempo. He trained under Ed Parker, and he's doing he was like honorary red belt, and Elvis is high as a kite. He's sweating, and he's doing his like, I'm going to kill you in like 90 different ways, you know, like striking the back of the head in here and like looking good.
But that hip movement.
Oh my goodness. I actually do make Elvis references when I'm teaching, right? It's like, okay, move your hips like Elvis, right?
Elvis,
so yeah, it's in there. So,
But I'm telling you, Bubba Hotep, best Elvis movie.
you know, I'd say that's its own podcast, but you know what? It's not.
It's not worth a whole podcast.
No.
But anyway, we're talking about cheesy martial arts, so it fits.
Yeah. So Jean-Claude Van Damme, bringing it back kind of to, you know, where we began, doing Bloodsport, great kickoff to lots of different martial art films of the late 80s into
And
the 90s.
video games and real world martial arts tournaments and stuff. I think it boosted a lot of things in the martial arts world. And even though it's kind of cheesy, I think it should get some credit for the influence it's had.
Yeah, and God, I think I watched Bloodsport for the first time on First Choice Super Channel.
First Choice Super Channel, wow. Yeah.
So to throw another 80s reference for those of you who remember, you know, having your cable
Their
box.
First Choice and Super Channel.
And then
First Choice Super Channel.
And then just Super Channel. That's how it worked. So yeah, that's where I first watched it. And amazing. So good.
Yeah.
We have to thank JCVD for giving us great entertainment in the late 1980s of Bloodsport. Let us know your favorite moments, because there are a lot of them. And, you know, I don't know if I'll watch that again anytime soon, but we did watch it.
Yeah, once every 20, 30, how long ago was 1988? Well,
Yeah, 30 years ago.
Yeah, so once every 30 years, you know. So we'll get together in, if we're still around in 30 years.
But for the record, Jason does believe that Steven Seagal would destroy Jean-Claude Van Damme.
No, I believe Steven Seagal's characters from that time would destroy Jean-Claude Van Damme's characters from that time.
Do you think personally he would too?
Don't know.
Don't know. Doesn't he? You just don't want to go there, or you what?
I don't know. People are actors and personalities, and we don't know what the reality of the thing is. So
I just think he's being politically correct. You know what? I'm going to press Jason because on our next episode, we're going to be talking about Above the Law and Steven Seagal. And there's a deep, deep.
I know
pool
more
of
about
stuff.
Steven Seagal than I know about Jean-Claude Van
Yes.
Damme.
So we'll talk about him then.
Yeah.
On the next Torvus podcast, right? Good.
Okay.
Okay, so thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. This has been episode 6 of Bloodsport, the quintessential 80s action film of the 80s.